Okay, so we will be recording this to YouTube as well as to as well as on here on this computer, so we have a record. So it is a recorded meeting, so everybody knows that. In addition to that, if someone's going to make public comment, we would accept public comment in one of 4 ways. You could drop public comment off at the box out at the front of the building. I have checked that just before the meeting. There was no public comment in the box. Second way is to send a public comment through the email, and I will check that here in just a few moments as we get the meeting started. I checked it earlier. There was none for this meeting. There is also a way to make public comment during the meeting, and in this case, because we promoted everybody to a panelist, they would just be able to speak, Bruce, when you allow for public comment to be made.
Okay.
So, that takes care of those items that needed to be brought up, and we can go. You have 12 people that are on.
I know Cindy's just called in. She's trying to get in right now.
Okay.
And Steve, you were rather garbled when you were going through that.
Yeah, everybody's rather garbled. I'm wondering why all of a sudden.
We'll give Cindy a couple seconds and then we'll start up. So are things still crazy, Steve, with township activity?
We're kind of in the I'm trying to figure out why we're getting feedback here a second.
Okay. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks. I've been here. I just forgot to connect my phone.
I can't tell why we're getting feedback, but we are. Yeah, things are going pretty well. Am I breaking up?
Yes.
Steve, you ready to start?
Yeah, go ahead and start. I'm going to go change. I'm going to go get a different camera and microphone.
Okay.
You guys go ahead and get started.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just as the point of introduction, this is the June 1st Newtown Township EAC meeting. Starts at 5 o'clock. It should end by 6:30. Let me have call to order. And I'll take a roll call. Chairman Bruce Killen, I'm here. Cindy Mahalo. I'll pass on her, she'll be here. Janet Kravanis.
Yes, here.
Okay. Sheila O'Sullivan Feeney.
Here.
Okay. Harry Bryants.
Here.
Jason DelCecco.
Here.
And Joseph Pinto.
Here.
Great. Manager Steve Neese is here, but is stepped away from the computer. And Mike Russo, supervisor. Mike, are you here?
Mike is not here, but Leonard Altieri is here.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Leonard.
How are you? How's everybody?
Good. Good.
Yeah.
We're moved to a brief. Go ahead.
We're sorry. Cindy is having difficulty, but she's on my speakerphone and she hears you now.
Okay, great. Well, she's going to hear a moment of silence. So lots of things to have silence about today.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have an approval of the agenda for this evening?
So moved.
Do I have an approval of the minutes from our previous meeting?
So moved.
Now we're going to move into some old business that we discussed previously. Harry, are you in a position to give a brief update on the tree ordinance?
Well, I have not been present in person or electronically at the supervisors meetings, but apparently at the most recent one, they determined to re-advertise the ordinance with some of the more recent changes that were proposed as a result of a meeting that Bruce Killen and I had with Steve Neese and George. But the copy I saw of what was to go for advertising did not pick up all of the changes that had been requested, and I have no knowledge why. It may be they didn't like some of them. But other than that, maybe Leonard would know more, or Steve at Anise, as to where things stand.
Well, from what I know, it's entered into the advertising phase. I believe that's 30 days. It'll come back and hopefully it'll then move forward to ultimate approval in the late June, early July timeframe. Is that your opinion or understanding, Harry?
I'm not qualified to answer that question, but maybe Leonard or Steve Neese is.
Okay. Steve?
Yeah, so I don't know. Oh, sorry.
Can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Am I still garbled?
no.
No.
Okay.
Much better.
I think I've lost video, but oh, here I can get it going again, hopefully. So let me kind of give you an update. Yeah, Harry, we did go back. I think the latest one that was submitted to the board actually does include two of the areas that we rewrote as you and George and I. The one thing that did come out by the direction of the board was the hazardous tree issue. After working through that, there was some question about how to handle hazardous trees. Joe had some real concerns, and there was some question about some issue of how the township would handle if it went in to take down a tree and what potential liability it would be and those kind of things. So we did take that section out. The other two sections were added back in late Friday. Friday a week ago. And that has been taken back to the board, and the board acted on it Monday a week ago, and they approved it for advertising. And I believe it's actually set to be passed as early as the meeting of the 8th, depending on when Joe got it in. So if Joe got the advertisement in, it would be on the meeting of the 8th.
Well, the only thing that I would mention, Steve, and again, it's not a gigantic issue, but you and George raised the issue of whether the heritage tree concept should be expanded from just a raw diameter at breast height, 36 inches is what we had in there, to, in addition,
and that was added.
well, you added in the back, I think, the concept that I had put in there, that if someone proposed to, if the township proposed to designate a tree a heritage tree because it had either historical or other community significance, that
Right.
the landowner would have an opportunity to be heard on that if they cared to be. And that went in. But the definition of heritage tree up front, which was a change to include not only the diameter breast height, but those other two concepts, looked to me as though it was not changed. So we have a half a kind of thing. It's not a big deal. It can be fixed, but I don't know why he would have included the right to appeal without including the concept itself. Maybe I misread it, but if you look at the definition of heritage tree, It seems to say simply 36 inches at breast height.
I'll look at that, but that's an easy change.
It is an easy.
Yeah.
So may I add that I know you have down here urban forestry seminars, and this on the 4th, I think it's the 4th of June, they're going to be discussing community tree ordinances and whether or not the townships can tell residents what they can do with their trees. I thought it'd be very interesting to hear their opinion through the urban forestry. Penn State, I think it is. But of course, that's after the fact.
When is it?
I think it's June the 4th.
O'clock on Wednesday at 12 o'clock, and it's part of the Penn State Extension Program. They mentioned that last week at the Community Trees Program that most of us
Yes.
attended.
Yes. It's either the 3rd or the 4th.
It's Wednesday at 12 o'clock, 12
Okay.
to 1.
My thoughts are this. I don't know that we need too much more input on the tree ordinance. We've come this far. I think we've shaken out a bunch of stuff. I do think we should continue to educate ourselves to assist in the forming of the tree commission and to assist in some of the other activities of the tree board or the tree commission, I should say. But with that said, I think it's a good idea for us to attend Wednesday. You said Wednesday at noon? Sheila?
That's what Sheila says, yes.
Yes, okay,
And you do have to register for that class as well.
okay. If anybody wants information on that, they can send me an email. My experience is those classes are short, an hour long, and excellent.
And free.
That's the best part. Pop-up garden, item 6.2. I don't want to be circular and continue to discuss these items, but I wanted to just make sure that in our current hold state, things are continuing to look good for some fall activities. Is that the case, Janet?
Well, I've discussed with Ralph Graves and also Val Peckham, both of which are from Audubon, either Valley Forge or Audubon, PA. Their thinking is that the Popup Garden should be delayed until the spring of 2021. Fall is precarious. We really don't know what's going to be happening there. We could make it to correspond with the International Migratory Bird Day, which is May the 8th, Saturday, May the 8th, so that we could have our pop-up garden over in and around that date. It would be better for the plants than to have it in April, since the plants would be more mature by that time. We're on a good start already to what the garden would look like. And the funding is still there. And I have emailed Suzanne. She said we could get onto the calendar as soon as what date we know. But we should stay away from Mondays and Thursdays.
Okay.
Right.
Does anybody else have any information that might impact the pop-up garden activity? Welcome, Cindy.
Oh, no, I don't have any activity. Any comments on the pop-up garden?
Okay.
When would the rain gardens go in, Cindy?
Well, as far as I know, I've just had them on hold, waiting to hear what the township government thinks they might be doing by the fall. If Steve thinks that things might be open and that the idea of volunteer activity with volunteers in close proximity would not be a problem, then we could, reactivate the planning.
I would say if I knew that at this point, I'd be probably making a whole lot more money than I am now and have a doctorate degree and all kinds of things. But right now, I think that there's nothing definite one way or another. I would say that, hopefully we're going to have a better feel come the end of July, at least hopefully some more direction. I don't necessarily see that happening, but we're still hoping that, you know, something comes about that says, yeah, we think we have an idea of how the fall is going to be addressed. But right now, I don't know that we have that.
Well, that's helpful. What I can do is reach out to the vendors and the other partners and see, you know, discuss with them how things look on their end in terms of their availability to do something in probably September, early October, probably September.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, Cindy, but I would say if we could do it in September and there's a chance of a go, that it's probably better than waiting until October or November, just because if there is going to be a second phase of this, it's more likely to be as the weather starts turning cooler.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the other argument in favor of doing it in September is that it's ideal for the plants to have a certain number of weeks to get established before the first frost is likely to hit. And that puts you into a September date.
Okay.
And Cindy, Plan B might be deferring until spring of 2021. Would that be a possibility if we can't get together in September?
You know, Bruce, I think it depends on the funding organization. So I don't know if you've been in touch with any of the folks at DEP about growing greener and what they're planning, but I think that's one of the biggest factors of timing.
Sure. Well, let me do this. I'll reach out to them for clarification on the deadline. First, I've got to research what the current deadline is, and then I'll find out if there's any latitude based on the current situation.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Yep.
Bruce, if you need any assistance with that, let me know.
Okay, I'll do that, Steve. 6.3, and Cindy, I apologize. Somehow the rain garden didn't find its way onto the agenda, but I had every intent to put it there.
No problem.
So the Greenway Plan, let me just summarize where we are. I have a draft, I'll call it 1.2, and we're going through some editing. I am done my editing, and the work is back in the hands of Gilmore, and I'm hoping to see their edited report in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And then once we get that, it'll go over to the committee, and we're hoping to wrap this thing up in the July timeframe.
Can I ask a question, Bruce?
Sure.
So with that being said, when you say wrapping it up in that July timeframe, are you expecting to present something to the Board of Supervisors in July, or are you looking forward to doing something in August?
I would hope mid to late July, we'd like the opportunity to present to the supervisors.
Okay, because I think the date, okay.
I doubt if they want to hear about all 101 pages.
Well, you never know. Some of us might. Okay, I was just curious on that. And just to kind of, I don't know if you were on the call or not for the supervisors meeting last week, but just something good to kind of, since it wraps in with the Greenways project. Newtown Square Presbyterian Church is getting a renovation done, or an addition, I should say. And we were able to come up with a pretty, creative plan, I think, knowing that we have the Greenways plan out there and wanting to continue to have accessibility among the township. We were able to work with them to get a trail. Supervisor Russo recommended essentially the plan that they were able to implement, which is going to be a walking trail that'll run alongside the church and come up into the parking lot. They were also able, at my suggestion, to give us 4 parking spots for parking, so that we could have people park on that as an overflow to the Goshen Trail, as a way to sort of reduce impervious surface and also kind of piggyback and use an already existing township resource to get onto the Lissard Trail and the Goshen Trail. So again, kind of just looping that in there with the Greenways plan, because I don't know how many people on this committee knew about that, but it's a good step forward
That was
Yeah.
excellent. That
what
was
we
excellent.
want.
Yeah.
Well done,
Yep.
Len.
Yeah, I had just have to hand it to Len and some of the other supervisors that kind of persevered. I didn't attend the most recent meeting, but I attended the first one where the church first presented their plan. And it was great to see the board just kind of wrestle with the issue and the idea of the trails and the accessibility and the parking. It was a real win-win-win, I think.
So would you say that again, Len, because I'm taking notes. You're going to have additional parking for the meadows?
So what it's going to be is right now, it's essentially going to serve as overflow parking for the Goshen Trail, since there's
Right.
no parking lot right now for the Meadow Preserve. So it's 4 designated parking spots on what would be alongside the parking area alongside of Goshen Road, right there up at the church.
Okay.
And a trail will now be constructed instead of having a sidewalk, because since it is a church, it wasn't lost on us that it is going to be, you know, a costly project, and we didn't want to see them not have to. Sorry, that's my brother-in-law walking by. We didn't want them to not be able to go forward with the project. So instead of putting in sidewalks, which would have been cost prohibitive for the church, we decided to do a walking trail instead.
Well, that's great. It's going to give the people from that whole neighborhood behind Culberson access to the meadows by taking that trail, crossing the street, and taking the Listener Trail.
Absolutely.
Good.
Any other old business that you folks can think of?
I do think what the supervisors did last week with the property in contention, they brought up and they denied the application. I thought that was excellent. They were very on top of the trees and they respecting the environment. And I've heard nothing but great things. So I'd like to thank the supervisors for that as well. That was a really good move.
That's great. I couldn't stay up that late. New business. Janet, you had expressed an interest in discussing purchasing cheap renewable power. Do you want to talk about that?
I wanted to discuss Ready for 100 and whether or not Newtown Square is ready to get into Ready for 100. I've been attending the Delco Ready for 100 grouping, so that takes in all of the townships within Delaware County. Just wanted to stress that Radnor, Haverford, Swarthmore, Lansdowne, Nether Province have already adopted Ready for 100 provisions. Broomall Media, Chester County, Concord, and Upper Province are working on it, so that all around us, people are making these, adopting Ready for 100. I've just had a email exchange with Bill Saby. He was one that came to our meeting last June, I think it was. They are ready to come and meet with us again to help hold our hand through getting organized for this. There is an organizing toolkit, which Bill Saby sent me the link to, so that we can see how we can proceed forward in having our township get ready to by 2035. That's what most of the townships in our area are striving for, to have 100% clean, renewable, and just energy. And also that involves helping our residents to get solarized if they wanted to put solar panels on their house. And I was wondering if, Steve, do you know that townships can get up to 90% funding for charging stations on their property?
I mean, I'm aware of it, and
Yeah.
we had actually looked at it briefly when we were looking at putting in, when we did some of the remodel of the building, but I don't know how it slipped past what we were doing, just other than it was such the project just missed it. But yeah, I am aware that there are funding rounds that allow for that.
Okay. Well, I am more than happy to stay on this project, but I think it requires more than just me. being the advocate for.
Enthusiastic, right. Let me ask,
Ready for volunteers.
yeah. Let me ask this question, Janet.
Yes.
When we're talking about renewable energy, the purchasing of renewable energy, are we talking about the township and township expenditures or residents?
No,
of
it's
the township?
it's township. It's township, how the township addresses their energy use and needs. But it expands to having a conversation with the larger community and what all of us can do. For example, I did listen in on a webinar by Peter Hughley, I never can know how to pronounce his last name, which was about how to switch your energy provider from Pico to one of the energy like a wind or a solar. And he's willing to do that for our residents as well if we want. So that's an example of how Ready for 100 extends past just the township response.
Sure. The toolkit that you made reference to, can we?
I can send out a link
That's
so
a
we
great
can all
idea.
become familiar with it. Bill Saby did caution me. He said there's no way for us to block people making changes to this because it's a Google Doc. So he wanted to stress that we look but not alter
Okay.
what's going on. All right, but
And
I
like-
think that's a good place to start, and then we can
Yeah.
think about when we might invite someone to come back. I know, Steve, you were not present when we had our last presentation. George was present, and this was a PowerPoint presentation. So I think it would behoove us, we have some new members on our committee. It would behoove us to get reacquainted with how to proceed forward.
I'll be
Great.
back in just a minute, folks.
Okay, okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Bruce. I got a message from Leonard that he had to jump off the call. There was a situation, but if anyone had needed to contact him, his email address, or I could give out his cell phone number if anyone needs it. But he said he hopes he can get back in the call, but he doubts it. The situation, he had to help out with something, okay?
Okay, thank you.
So I'll send out the link for the
Mhm.
toolkit and any other information that I can share.
Harry, you chime in on something?
No, I'm here.
Okay. The next item I have on the agenda is discussion of this strategic plan study that the township just completed. And I put some points together I'll talk about, and anybody else that might have either seen the presentation or read the document is welcome to jump in. But in summary, I saw the presentation to the supervisors 2 or 3 meetings ago. I also read the report. It's still defined as a draft report, but I think it's 95% done. Less a couple edits. And in both cases, they did a great job, both in terms of the presentation and the content of the report. And I encourage people to take a look at it. It's on the website. But some of the takeaways I have from the report is residents were asked what's important to the township. And number 1 is traffic mitigation, which is, I'm not sure how much can be done about that, but it's kind of not, my position and my thought is traffic's going to stay the way it is. It's getting worse. Not much can be done about the volume of traffic passing through the township, primarily during rush hour. So that's number 1 requested item. Number 2, I'm pleased to say, is supporting environmental initiatives. 91% of the population, of the people surveyed, thought that was important, and that's the second most important item identified. I think what that tells me is we have a good bit of work to do and an opportunity to do it right now. Some of the items associated with that environmental support are preserve water quality and vegetation, preserve open space, stormwater management, and enforce ordinances having to do with impervious surfaces. And let's see, that's unrelated. I also saw in the report a section called Directive 2, having to do with the environmental issues. And that's a one-page summary of what has been uncovered through discussions with the residents of the township, stakeholders, township employees. And the other part of this one-page summary, which is page 14, has to do with recommended initiatives. So I think those initiatives will help to drive our activity coming, over the next year or so. So I encourage people to take a look at that page 14 of the strategic plan.
And that's on the website?
Yes, it is. And like I said, it's labeled as a draft, but I think it's pretty darn close to what's ultimately going to be released.
And this is from when we met, had several meetings that.
They had several meetings. They did a mailing to the township, U.S. Postal Service mailing, and they had a tremendous response rate. I think it's the first time I've ever seen a survey come in the mail for the township. So that's a good sign. Anyway, what the strategic plan is supposed to be or is the follow-up to our comprehensive plan. And if you compare the residents' requests from the comprehensive plan and the strategic plan, you find that they're almost identical. Things haven't changed. So we will drive our activity based off that strategic plan. Does anybody have any questions regarding the plan?
The supervisors are they going to sort of shake water over it and ultimately approve it, you think, or how does that work? But they don't have to.
I think they approve acceptance of the plan, that it's complete, it's been evaluated, and the project is concluded at that point. That's the way the other reports that I've been involved with have been handled.
Bruce, I appreciate you bringing this up again, because I was actually attended part of the meeting at which that the chairwoman presented the report, and it was very impressive. And I did look at the report a little bit, but with your encouragement now, I'll go back and reread it and, let that guide future planning.
Yeah. Way I look at it, this strategic committee did some of our work, identified what we should be working on.
Yeah, it was great to see another body separate from the environmental, the EAC, come up with validation of the importance of these issues to the general population.
Sure.
And I think when the supervisors, when they presented this, the issue about the traffic was encouraging residents to find ways to, like we said, the trails, the walking, other ways to conduct business during the day without necessarily having to take a car out. So using bike or whatever, our own 2 good feet. So that was something that they brought up as well. So that's a great thing to help with your greenways.
Sure. Yep. Further comments before we move on to item 7.3? Okay, Janet, you had, no, that's a collective discussion about the urban forestry session that we attended a number of us attended last week. I think it was Wednesday at noon. In summary, I thought it was an excellent event. It tells me that we have to kind of expand our time horizon because tree initiatives take years. And I don't know that we're looking out far enough to pull off improving the urban forestry in the township.
That's right. You have to work on not on the age of trees, so you don't have everything maturing at the same time. And
Exactly.
you have your trees going down, right?
Mhm.
So the species of trees that you plant is also very important.
Mhm.
I would think the tree commission would be a great place for this discussion or this looking for how best to tree our community. That would be a good place for it to be.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
I learned
tree commission.
what I learned about tree commissions in this presentation and other reading I've done is, they're not only responsible for I don't want to, policing or monitoring tree activity. They're also responsible for establishing things like tree plans and tree management plans. So the strategic or the tree commission has some work to do beyond what my original thought was.
Right, just not tree police.
That's right. Tree police is the wrong word.
Well,
Especially today.
I'm sorry I missed that, and I hope that they've archived it and I'll go back and get to listen to it. I heard some similar messaging a year or two ago when I went to a kind of an urban forestry day-long workshop it was either Swarthmore or Haverford. And they talked about how it can be a very useful tool to conduct a tree inventory of, at least initially, of the trees on township property. And I noticed that in that EAC conference a week or two ago, Ambler mentioned that they were getting a college student to conduct a tree inventory for them this summer. And I thought that would be something that maybe we could aspire to do for the summer of 2021. It's probably too late this year. Again, that would be a perfect thing for a tree commission to handle.
Sure.
Good.
Now, are you talking about inventory both on township property as well as private property, or just township property?
Well, I would see this incrementally. I think, you can do it progressively. Like there is an inventory of the ash trees on township property. So it seems the next step that would be manageable would be to inventory all trees on township property. And then maybe, if you do this in phases over time, the next step might be trees on township right-of-ways, these trees that ostensibly the tree commission would be empowered to comment on and supervise. And I think the last ones would be trees that are like totally on private property, like in someone's backyard, not in the township right away.
Right.
That would be really, that would be a very big task.
Harry, we talked about tree inventory, and you had mentioned it is quite a task, a very, very big, time-consuming process, especially if you go into private property. Is that?
Well, I know that Radnor has had a couple of people have taken upon themselves to do what Cindy just said, which is inventory the street trees, the trees within the public right of way. Radnor ordinance and most ordinances place the burden of maintaining the street trees on the municipality. One of the changes that Steve and George requested, which I think was put in, was that the primary people responsible for maintaining the trees in the public right of way will be the homeowner, and the township is sort of a backup party in that exercise. But inventorying street trees is a
Is it what? Did you drop out, Harry?
big project.
Oh.
I mean, particularly in the township where the canopy is pretty mature.
Yeah, that's why it caught my attention that Ambler was going to have an intern to do this. You know, kind of tapping into the resources at the local universities. So I'd love to find out more about how they're doing that, how they're funding it, who's supervising it. I thought it might be something we could emulate.
Mhm.
Cindy, why do you think it has to take place next summer and not this summer?
Well, it's already June 1st.
Mhm.
You know, you'd have to come up with a position description and resources and funding, and most colleges already let out in the middle of May. Unless there's someone on the commission or the EAC that's ready to jump on this.
Janet? I'm
No.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
You know, my thought is there's a lot of kids looking for something to do this summer.
Yeah, I would say that one of the challenges that we'll have is that we have put all the internships on hold this year,
Oh, okay.
financially.
Mm-hmm. So it'll be next summer.
All right.
But Cindy, I also believe in the meeting, they were talking about being creative with your resources and maybe, like they said, Eagle Scouts and a variety of other ways to provide inventory for the township. So maybe we could just kind of decide to be a little bit more creative and see what we can do without having to pay, you know, someone to do some of the stuff.
Yeah, I like that idea of not being dead in the water until next May. It's just, you know, it does, to do it properly, it does take coordination and you need someone to take the lead. I think there's a lot of knowledge that already exists, like within George's department. I know that, for example, people on his crew went with Bruce. I think they went with you, and I think they went with Paul Seligson, and they used the iPads that were loaned by the Forestry Service as part of our grant, and they got training on the iTree software. So I think there's a base of knowledge there. It's just, you know, we need someone with the bandwidth to run point on this. And
Sure.
I just wasn't ready to step forward and be that person.
Well, I
Yeah.
know with Parks and Rec, we actually did a labeling system a couple of years ago when we actually got we had about 100 tags, but we were only able to put up like 75 of those, but those trees were identified. But it was a really good thing to coordinate with Parks and Rec, so maybe we can reach out with them because they have some of the expertise. We could ask and see if indeed anyone could help kind of at least encourage the process. And with Paul, we can maybe try to see if we can get something going.
Yeah.
That's Great idea.
All right, I will meet with them on Thursday, so I'll mention that and ask for their help.
Okay. Thank you, Sheila.
Another thing I thought was really interesting from that meeting of the urban forestry call and the community tree, they brought up obviously a fundraising for community trees project, and they were saying not only do we look at grants and partnership and a variety of other ways, but they also mentioned, which was interesting, and Steve might be interested, is when they're saying, how when you're trying to deal with hazard trees in the township, but sometimes they said if the township provides you the infrastructure of having like a tree work group bid, so that way the township has secured in advance their preferred vendor, if you will, and let's say you provide for those situations where you have a hazard tree, it provides them with some guaranteed level of work, and then therefore there's a set price for the trees based on the height. but they were suggesting that it's a way for the townships through the tree commission to get, it's called, they called it the tree work group bid. And I know it's kind of touchy because you're kind of getting into somebody doing work and supplying, but it would be through residents having access through the group bid and getting, obviously, through the economies of scale, a lower cost.
Mhm.
But it was just some suggestion. And they also, which I really liked, is they talked about some ways, like an alumni from the high school wrote back to all of his, he got
Right.
hold of the list, which was really interesting. And he got a list of all the graduates from the school from decades and wrote back to them and asked them to kind of reinvest in their township with their tree program. And they were able to, incredibly build up their tree program. So this was all under the efforts of the tree commission. One thing I looked at was do you guys ever hear the Tree Philly program?
I have not.
No?
Okay, it's wonderful. It's called the Tree Philadelphia program. And what it is it's a private and corporate that provides trees both to communities and to parks, but also to residents. All they have to do is prove that they're a resident. They come and collect the trees. They get a quick education on making sure they're properly planting the tree. They're encouraged to, they select the tree based on their area and neighborhood and what the needs are, and making sure it's an appropriate tree for the size of the lot or what have you. But what's great is TD Bank is the corporate sponsor for it. So what they do is a partnership where they have both public programs, and this is again through the Philadelphia Tree Commission. It's called Tree Philly program. They get state monies and federal monies, but then they get corporate sponsorship. So it's a great way for us to kind of look into meeting the goal of having 1,000 trees planted, but we definitely have to be creative on how we're going to be able to fund those trees. Because we were talking about, let's say, even if I were to go get 5 new trees put on my property, and these are trees, let's say maples, are between 7 to 8 foot tall, it would cost me approximately $2,000 for me to get a contractor to come in and obviously dig the holes and properly plant the trees and all of that. And that's a very costly venture. So they were saying that sometimes if we could coordinate maybe with a local nursery like Mastardi's or whatever, get a reduced price for residents. And it's something just to encourage us to, plant more trees, because I live on Beechwood, and I will tell you in the last, 15 years, the amount of people that have removed trees is unbelievable. And there was this property down the street that just removed 30 trees, 30. And it's shocking. And so I would love to do anything we can do to kind of encourage more trees.
Sure. Comments on,
Well, I
As far
suggest
as-
Sheila take the lead on that and find out.
I will work with that, but I've also got another thing to work with, so I'm going to get your help on that too. So I'll be glad to help with anyone on that. But it's kind of the big picture, and I believe that's going to be part of the tree commission once they're going to be dealing with that. But it would be when that is set up. And Bruce, when will that be set up?
it's kind of to be determined, but I would think in the summertime time frame.
Okay, because I'd like to know about that, because I can help support them with some of these things, but it's a big task. I mean, this is a huge.
Sure. Yep.
I think that's exciting, Sheila, and I'm going to look into that Tree Philly program. Yeah, and I will help you with that.
Awesome. And PHS also kind of underwrote some of the costs of that too, Cindy. So the money is out there, guys. We just have to have help to go out and get it.
Yeah, we just moved here from Philly, and we could call, I think, 411, and they would come plant a tree in front of your house for free. Not even a pickup.
Wow.
If you want any help with that kind of stuff, Lindsay and I are very interested in that, and we'll volunteer time, resource, and whatever it is. That kind of program is really exciting for us.
All right. So Matt, if I can, afterwards, I'll just get your email address and all that stuff. We can.
Sure. You can get it from the group email that Bruce sent out earlier.
Okay. Awesome.
It's in that group. But yeah, Lindsay and I just planted 3 trees on our property, and it's pricey. We didn't hire contractors; we did it ourselves. But
Yeah, but you're younger than I am, Matt, and I've done those. But I'm getting older, dude, and I can't dig.
yeah.
As
But
much
I
as I
mean,
used.
even the trees themselves can be cost prohibitive, I suppose.
Oh yeah, right.
So we're
Yeah.
doing it a little at a time. 3 down, 30 to go.
Great. But I also thought in terms of the tree initiative, if Steve has that, meeting that 1,000 tree goal, I really think that we need to start promoting that. And I think by having, maybe a community bulletin board or, even the where you'd have the thermometer, this is our goal. And it's just a matter of putting it out to the universe, making all of our residents aware of it, saying, hey, this is what we need to do, what we want to do. How can you help us get there? And I think in Community Magazine, it's a great way that we can get them to be encouraged. And also it will be a way that you can then validate that this tree has been planted, and whatever method you need to get to your 1,000, it'll be helpful.
And your thermometer should look like a tree.
Yeah,
as
good.
it grows.
Next, we have on the agenda is 7.4, is a discussion of what we can do this summer virtually to move the cause forward. And I'm receptive to any comments about that. I have a couple thoughts, but any thoughts on what we can do in terms of community communication this summer, or planning, or anything having to do with visibility to our neighborhood residents?
I have to mention that I've been listening into Bedford 2020, which is up in Westchester County, New York. I got listening to it because they have a wonderful poster called Leave the Leaves Alone. And it's about not raking up your leaves. It shows many of the organisms that overwinter under leaves. And so I thought it would be great for us to have that. But they have a whole summer of webinars that they've been giving. And one of them was on composting for people to compost on their property. They help to support the purchase of these composting barrels, which I thought might be something that we could introduce to our residents as well, rather than just throwing everything away, or composting out in your backyard when you have a fox that's out there. Maybe you don't want him digging around in there. So, but that's something that I just thought sounded really interesting.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the town that this is.
It's Bedford 2020 in Westchester County.
Pretty high rent district.
It's what?
You say it's a high rent district.
Okay, well, but they've been working really hard on their activities to reduce their carbon footprint, and be self-sustaining. Right.
I know of actually 2 things as well. If anyone wants to jump in on this will be helpful. On July 21st, we're planning the public input for the Greer Park. And this will be for getting input from all the citizens that were interested in the park to see how we can improve the park. But I thought it would be helpful, since Urban Research will be discussing some environmental issues that I'm hoping if maybe we can have EAC presence there. And we're not sure if Steve will tell us whether it's going to be done virtual or it will be an in-person. We're still waiting on that, right, Steve, on the format for the.
Yeah, I think we're still waiting.
Yeah. So
I'm thinking we're going to probably plan for virtual, just because of the way things are going right now.
Well, we were hoping then if it's virtual, we'll have to, adjust this. But if it were in person, I was looking to see if anyone would be able to. I'm trying to get through DCNR some pamphlets because there's 5 or 6 properties along Fox's Run, which is the water system that comes through Greer Park, that have people that have ponds on their property downstream. In addition, if we had, did you ever see the Care to Creek DNCNR pamphlet. I'm trying to see if we can get some copies of that to be able to give to residents to help them aware of this. I'm also looking for any help with other EAC members or any volunteers really to have some type of presence at these meetings, just so we can encourage people to be environmentally aware of all of the issues that are so dear to all of your hearts. And again, it's going to be depending upon the format. If it's going to be done through a virtual, then we're just going to have to get creative. In addition to that, I know that Mike McGraw, who is the urban research, he's the biologist involved. He is making a series of fun, I'm calling them, Greer Park commercials. But what they're doing is they're going to highlight some environmental issues down at the park. He'll highlight some of the bird species that are down there and kind of just encourage everyone to look at our parks and respect nature and make it a really positive, engaging, way for us. Then the township will put that up on YouTube. It will be able to be shared with, all the supervisors, but also all the residents. So it's a lot of good stuff. So anybody who wants to help me out with, if indeed we are going to have in-person meetings on that, let me know. I am trying to get some help with getting the pamphlets that I need to be able to distribute. And I think it's kind of exciting.
I can help you with the DCNR pamphlets.
Oh, great. Bruce, anything you can get me that would be helpful to this, that'd be perfect. I definitely need the water issues and the stream and the creek going through your property and anything general that would be for us to hand out or encourage people to talk about some of the things. I would also love anything, if you can, on rain barrels, because we're going to try to encourage the residents along both sides of the park to, have rain barrels. We're also wanting to encourage anything to remind them to not use, pesticides and things like that, because this is part of our watershed. So all good stuff we can hand out would be really appreciated. And then when we were talking about that same thing with public input for virtual programs, since we're still in the situation where we won't be really in public, I was hoping for us to eventually, maybe sometime starting in the late August to fall, maybe like you said, Janet, getting these tablings set up with all the ideas you're talking about, presenting them in front of people at our concerts or at community events or at things that like the 5K run, Pints in the Square. They would be great opportunities for us to engage our public and make them aware of these things. And it'll give a great chance for you to find members who are interested in these little pet projects too.
Sure. Hey, Cindy?
Yeah, if I could chime in on that, Sheila, I was just watching a couple days ago, Penn State webinar on repairing your backyard stream. And it was like an hour-long webinar. And the whole time I was watching it, I was thinking, how can we repurpose this? How can we use it in Newtown Square? And I think there's some possibilities there. What they had done was like an hour long, and the first 10 minutes was a woman standing by her stream in an engaging way, asking questions like, how do you know if your stream is healthy? And there's simple things you can learn by observation. And then they went into like a 40-minute more technical presentation on how to restore your stream to health, which would be totally relevant for all the people living on Fox's Run and any other stream. And I was thinking, how much effort would it be and how much use could we get out of creating our own version of this by just like tacking a 10-minute Newtown Square specific opening on to the other part and kind of leveraging the work that they had already done. So, I'm glad to follow up with you on that because, it's very related to what you're just talking about.
Oh, and I think also if we can work with getting that to Steve, maybe we could put it through the YouTube channel. If it depends on who owns the content, but Steve, would there be a format that we could share that information, or we could, because I know the urban research is going to have some links on their surveys for key information that we talked about. So maybe we can drop some of those on that pamphlet as well.
Yeah, I think the question will be two things. One is, we just want to make sure that whatever it is not copyrighted.
Right.
If we're going to put it up on ours. And it's always easier to put a link from the website to wherever it is. So if they update it, but if we're trying to put a piece in front of it, then we'll definitely do it through ours.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah, actually, that was my thought too, in terms of content for anything virtual this summer, is to not reinvent the wheel. There's some great stuff out there with an EAC introduction or a mailing of some sort. We can point resonance to some of these seminars. I think it would be just wonderful for us. Cindy, did we ever close the loop with the consultant that was trying to reach out to us on Greer Park?
I guess not. I'm trying to remember which consultant.
Someone reached out to us and said they'd like to interview us.
It was Urban.
Oh,
From
Joanne
Urban.
Joanne Conley.
Yeah.
No, I never heard from her.
All right. I will make sure that she has your email address, because I know that she's in the middle of getting the neighbors focus group together for one day
She
this
has
week.
their email address.
Okay.
I've given it to her.
Okay, yep.
Okay.
Oh, can I jump in here and go back to something that I meant to ask when we were talking about these the open space trails plan, and you said you're reviewing it, and then when is the EAC? When is the rest of the task force reviewing the document? And the second question is, isn't there supposed to be a public input session? And what would the date be for that? And couldn't they do that by Zoom? So kind of more specific timing of the next couple steps.
Sure. In terms of your first question, when will the steering committee have the opportunity to look at the report? What I wanted to do is do some dirty work before it was submitted to you guys. So you wouldn't just to make the version that we see nice, because it's very difficult to read multiple versions and keep track of changes. So I wanted to have one near finished document sent to the committee in the next, I'll say 3 weeks or so.
Okay.
Unlike some of our own or previous schedule things, I'm not going to have us need to turn it around in 4 days. We're having for 2 weeks or so to submit our edits directly to Gilmore. So that's item one. Okay. Item number 2 is a public meeting, and I've discussed that with them, and they're not adverse to doing something in Zoom. Probably in the the early July timeframe. The challenge will be, as always, getting participants to join us for that public meeting.
Yep.
So, in summary, I want to finish this thing up by the end of July. You've got 3 weeks in editing right now, 2 weeks for us to review, and then the final report will be issued to us for approval by the supervisors, like I said, before the end of July.
Great. Thanks for that specificity. Thanks.
Sure. Non-virtual events that we should plan for in the fall timeframe, other than the rain garden, the native plant initiative, and the I guess that's it. They're the 2 things that I can think of that we've got kind of locked in for the fall.
The fall planting of trees?
Pardon me?
Would there be any plans for fall planting of trees? Because that's a good time to plant them.
It's a great time to plant them. We've got to pay for them somehow.
Okay.
I thought we discussed that the Arbor Day was going to be rescheduled for sometime in September, and PHS was going to make the trees available. Is that correct, Cindy? The Arbor Day initiative was supposed to be postponed till September is the way we left it.
Yes, I guess that, again, that's all pending, if PHS is going to be distributing the trees in the fall, and if the township is going to be permitting public gatherings. You know, there is something I want to look into, and that is, I've been monitoring what Haverford is doing with their rain garden installations, which were very much, you know, involving close contact and the community. And they have started building their rain gardens, and they are doing so on a very adjusted format and protocol, with the numbers of volunteers and supervisors and things like that. So I can look into that more and see if we can learn anything from that that might be applicable to, you know, doing a fall tree planting in a COVID-19 manner.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And if Parks and Rec's allowed to have a concert, I believe, Steve, that's still on the table. They're hoping if they would be able to have a concert in late September, October, it would be helpful if EAC could have a presence there with making, you know, the community aware of some of these issues. So again, it would be a table event that we would set up and have all the pamphlets that we talked about, and just provide a positive way to engage the community and talk about the trees and the water and all the issues that are important to all of us.
I'm sure we could have ready for 100 posters there too.
There you go.
And banners.
Janet, you should be in marketing.
Please don't.
Further comments on any new business that hasn't been discussed? I'll say new business, and I really apologize, Joe, about our new member. I want to introduce Joe Pinto. Are you still there, Joe?
I'm still here, yes.
Okay. I'm real sorry for not hitting you in the beginning. I had notes to do that, and I just got distracted.
That's fine.
Okay. If give us the elevator pitch of what you do and what your interest might be.
Okay. Well, I moved to Newtown Square in 2016, December of 2016. I was living in West Norton or Norristown area. I work currently for a continuing care retirement community known as Shannondale, out in Audubon, PA. I'm here right now because I wasn't going to be able to get home by 5. So I studied a master's program at St. Joe's for environmental protection and safety management. I have my master's degree in that. And since then, I've been kind of dipping my toe in here and there to try and get involved in different things. And I'm on the Rose Tree Woods pool board, and a friend of mine from there had suggested the EAC, and I looked into it, and that's kind of how I came to find you folks. So I'm very interested in a multitude of environmental issues. I want to get involved so that I can, show my children what it's like to do their civic duty, and to reduce our footprint in this world that we live in.
That's great. Well, it might take a couple, 1 or 2 months to figure out what we're up to, because
Sure, yeah.
It's somewhat confusing, but take a look at the stuff that you have an interest in, and raise your hand.
Okay.
As we discuss these items.
Definitely.
And you're also welcome. I'll drop you an email.
Okay.
But
Perfect.
you're welcome to send us emails with any questions.
So
Thank you
Bruce,
very
I
much.
really think we should each say just a few sentences about ourselves, since none of us
Sure.
know us at all.
Yeah. Go ahead, Janet.
Okay, so here I am, I'm waving.
Hi, Janet.
Welcome, Joe. And I came on the EAC because I wanted to find a place in the community that would plant milkweed for monarch butterflies. And that was 5 years ago. So I'm really involved in native plants. I've become the Birdtown person for Newtown Square through Audubon. And so those things have been my primary focus, along with the other things that we do, like marking trees. And
That's great.
so I know we each have our passions, and that it makes it very helpful for our committee.
Next, Sheila.
Hey, Joe, I'm Sheila
Yes,
Sullivan Feeney. I'm actually one of the volunteers on Parks and Rec, and that's how I got involved in making sure, you know, all of these things are important to me and important to our community. And then, so from Parks and Rec, I figured, listen, environmental is the bigger way to make an impact for all of our community. I'm passionate about these things because it's not only important for the quality of our water, it's the quality of our trees, the quality of our life, but people's mental health is impacted too by their space. So it's important to me to find ways to engage the community, be excited about it, and it's a really neat thing to do. So I'm glad you stepped up. And where do your children go so we can get them to help us too? Which school do they go to?
So my son, they're going to Culbertson right now. They're
Okay,
very young.
awesome. Okay, so I can see you down as one of the Culbertson volunteers when we're putting out EAC information and volunteers. All right, and remember, Joe, like if you don't step up to volunteer, we will give you something to volunteer.
Okay, definitely.
Next, anybody? I'll go.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll go. I'm Bruce Killen, chair. I do a lot of administrative functions for this group. I'm passionate about environmental issues. I'd like to see the township left in better condition when I leave than when I arrived. And I quite frankly enjoy this a whole bunch. It's fun activity, and I find it gratifying. Jason?
Hi, Jason Pacheco. I've been on the EAC since January of this year, so a little bit of a disruptive time since I've joined. I also have 4 young kids. All go to Culbertson. I don't know if you've seen my head on a swivel the whole time. My wife's also on a work call, so dinner time and 2 parents on a call with 4 young kids equals my head's on the swivel. So, but I've listened to everything and actually taken hopefully good. But yeah, I'm also passionate about the environmental stuff. I work for Johnson & Johnson. I do engineering and supply chain strategy. So we do a lot of environmental initiatives through work. And so, you know, in doing that professionally, I really wanted to get involved at the local level, you know, to set an example for my kids and figure out how I can help the community as well.
That's great.
Nice to meet you.
I'll go next. This is Cindy. I'll take, there I am. So you
Hi,
can,
Cindy.
hello. I was making dinner earlier while talking, so I didn't want you to see me bustling around. I've been on the EAC, probably 6 years now. And prior to that, I was on an EAC, chaired an EAC in Northern New Jersey. My passions are, I guess, trees and stormwater. A couple years ago, I went through the Penn State Extension Master Watershed Steward Program and completed that training so that I can know more about it and be a public advocate. Sorry, that's dinner cooking. And contribute in that way. So I focus a lot on stormwater and stream health and tree health. And I also enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm concerned about human health and the planet that we're leaving our children. And I went to Culbertson. I grew up on Overbrook Drive and then Tyson Road. So I'm a Culbertson alum.
Wow.
And where did Harry go?
Yeah. Harry, you out there?
No, I'm Harry Brown. I'm a retired lawyer. We've lived in the township for about 22 years or something. We live along Darby Creek. And like everybody else, I'd like to see us at least hold the line and hopefully improve our environmental footprint. but it's a great place to live and we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, if I'll take any closing comments from anybody on any subject before we adjourn the meeting. Does anybody have anything to say at this point?
I just want to jump in with a warning about spotted lanternfly. I've been on the lookout for the nymphs the last month or so, and they have appeared in the last week.
Ooh.
I've seen them on trees in our development, and one of our neighbors just called. She saw them on her patio furniture.
Oh.
I did buy some of that sticky band tape from an online source and put it on one of my trees 2 days ago, and it's already caught quite a few nymphs. So just be on the lookout. They're not that hard to see. If you stand by the tree and just stare at it and look for signs of movement, it'll catch your eye.
And which kind of trees did you find it on, Cindy?
Well, mostly a maple, which was a smooth barked maple. So the banding worked quite well. But then I was doing some pruning on a maple and a smoke bush, and a couple nymphs jumped off the leaves from that maple.
Okay, I'm going to adjourn the meeting unless anybody's got any further to say. Steve, before I do that, Steve, do we have any public comments?
We did not. I did check. If I could jump back up to your township strategic plan summary.
Yeah.
I apologize. I had to step out of the room for a minute. Just so you know, the board did receive the strategic plan, and I am working on the workshop for the board, the staff, and the strategic plan committee. So that will be being worked on to get down for the next 5 years worth of goals so that we can achieve our intended outcomes and directives that we have. So I don't know what was said, and if all that was said, I apologize to bore you the second time around. And
No.
I just wanted to let you know that was happening.
Well, if you were away, what I said, I thought the initiative is great. I was impressed with the presentation, impressed with the report, and pleased that environmental initiatives were so visible in the report.
They were very visible.
So.
If
All
you-
right, with that,
If you've not seen it, it is available on the website.
Yes, we're going to go to page 14.
all right, with that said, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. And do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. All right, well, thanks, everybody. We'll see you shortly.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Okay.
Take care, be safe, and stay healthy.
Okay.
Bruce, let me know about the pamphlets, Bruce. Let me know.
Yeah, I'll get you the pamphlets.
Awesome. And as many as possible and as variety as possible. And we also,
Okay.
because there's 6 people